What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Fish the Moment. Today I'm in my garage prepping for another Catch 15 challenge. This week we're heading to Beaver Lake. Now I want to walk through all the baits and strategies I'm going to use to try to put 15 pounds of bass in the boat. Let's get into it. Beaver Lake is a highland reservoir in northwest Arkansas. It's laid out a little bit different from other lakes in the country. The dam is actually on the northern part of the lake, and the water visibility up there is between 5 and 10 feet of visibility. The river is on the southern part of the lake, and the water might have 6 inches to 2 feet of visibility down there. This gives me a lot of options in terms of water visibility, as well as different types of cover and structure to fish. The one wild card this week is that the water is actually 7 feet high, which means there's a lot of flooded bushes. However, as you guys know, I'm not that much of a shallow water angler, so I'm gonna try to find some fish offshore. In my last challenge against Randy, I actually caught a lot of fish offshore on Table Rock Lake, even though the lake was 4 to 5 feet high. Those fish were schooled up and I caught them on a hair jig. Now hoping to find a similar situation on Beaver Lake this week. The fish are a little bit delayed given the high water, so there may be some really big schools of fish set up on offshore points, drops, and ledges. However, this time of year normally, the fish are usually breaking up from those big schools and getting on more isolated cover like brush piles. Therefore, I have to be prepared for a variety of different offshore scenarios and techniques if I want to put 5 bass for 15 pounds in the boat. Now that you have a better idea of how the lake is set up and what my overall strategy is going to be, let me walk you through some of the baits I've tied on to hopefully cover all the different scenarios I'm going to face on Beaver. First up, we have some of my tried and true offshore baits that I tie on regardless of which lake I'm going to when I'm fishing offshore. The first one is going to be the Fish the Moment Offshore Jig by Jerkbait Company. I know, big surprise to my normal viewers. This is my 5/8 ounce football jig I designed for Jerkbait Company. It's in the green pumpkin color with a green pumpkin Jerkbait VersaCraw Jr. on the back. This bait is super versatile and I can throw it in offshore brush piles, offshore rock. I can stroke it off the bottom, fish it shallow or deep. Regardless of what scenario I'm gonna face on the lake, I know I'll probably be able to get a bite on this jig. I'm pairing that on a 7'4" heavy action Quantum Smoke S3 rod with 16-pound Sunline FC Sniper fluorocarbon. Basically just going to throw this thing in the thickest, nastiest cover I can find and hopefully put some big fish in the boat. I caught a 6-pounder on this bait the last challenge, so hopefully I can repeat that performance on Beaver. But I'm not that hopeful that's gonna happen. Another bait I used in my last Catch 15 challenge that I always have tied on regardless of what lake I'm going to is a deep diving crankbait. If there's any sort of wind or current on Beaver when we get out there, I know I can probably find some fish positioned on some drops or ledges and get them to bite on a crankbait. My go-to crankbait is a Strike King 6XD in the chartreuse powder blue back color. I'm throwing that on a new rod actually. A lot of my older rods are all discontinued, so I'm trying to get some new rods so I can recommend some rods that you can actually buy in these upcoming videos. And the one I went with is this Denali KOVERT 7'6" medium heavy action crankbait rod. Haven't thrown it yet, so I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but I'll give you guys a detailed review in upcoming videos. If I am not throwing it anymore, you'll know I don't like it. But that's one rod there, and I'm just putting that with a $59 Abu Garcia Black Max winch reel. It's a 5:4-to-1 gear ratio reel with 12-pound monofilament line. This is just some Berkeley monofilaments, nothing too crazy there. And I feel like if those fish again are positioned in schools, there's some wind, some current, this could be a big player and I could put some fish in the boat very quickly. I also have a bigger crankbait tied on in case those fish are a little bit deeper, if the water's a little bit clearer. This is a Strike King 10XD, big beefy crankbait that gets down to 20 feet of water. Put that on a 7-foot, 11-inch medium heavy action 13 fishing Frankenstein rod. I don't know if they make this rod anymore. I got this a long time ago, but 7-11 crankbait rod with a 5:4-to-1 gear ratio reel. This is a discontinued quantum reel, and I have 14-pound monofilament on this. So those are kind of my go-to baits when I'm trying to fish offshore. If those fish are aggressive, if they're in a pretty good mood, I should be able to put a lot of fish in the boat on those baits. The tough thing about Beaver though is that it gets a lot of fishing pressure, both from local anglers, also from tournament anglers. And this means that a lot of times these normal baits, your football jigs, your crankbaits, are not going to be enough to get the job done. You have to go to some unique kind of off the wall baits to trick these fish into biting. So I have a bunch of those tied on here, and I want to kind of walk you through some of these oddball baits that hopefully will work to put some fish in the boat and give the fish a different look from the other anglers. The first somewhat unique bait that I have tied on here is a Megabass 5-inch spark shad with a Dobyns weedless swimbait head. It's a 1-ounce head. And I don't see a lot of guys throwing these weedless swimbait heads and fishing swimbaits like this around heavy cover. My plan with this bait is to throw it in the tops of standing timber and in offshore brush piles. And I know a lot of guys throw big 10-inch worms or maybe drop shots, stuff like that, in the offshore timber and brush piles. But I don't see a lot of guys throwing a big heavy swim bait through those areas. I'm hoping that throwing something a little bit different around there will trigger some extra bites. The rod I'm throwing it on is another new rod I'm experimenting with, AttaX series Tennessee River multi-purpose rod. It's a 7'4" medium heavy action rod. Looks really good, has a nice feel to it. I think it should be good for these swim baits, and so I'm gonna give it a try. It's only 129 bucks, so if it works, I'll definitely let you guys know because I think it could be a really good bargain. I'm pairing this rod with an Abu Garcia Black Max reel. Picked it up for $39 2 years ago, and it's still working great. And I'm just putting some 12-pound Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon on here. So that's kind of my first unique setup, just a little swim bait. The next bait that I'm gonna try out is one that I haven't really thrown that much, but I've had in the tackle box for a while, and it's the Feather Shad by Jewel Bait Company. This is a hair jig, but it's a little bit unique in the fact that it has a really stout hook and it has a little single wire weed guard. What I'm thinking is that I can also throw this hair jig around the brush piles and the standing timber and give those fish a different presentation than I used to. It's kind of like almost throwing a flutter spoon or something like that around the brush and the deep trees, but hopefully, you know, I won't get hung up nearly as much as you would with a flutter spoon or a regular hair jig. I don't know if it's going to be that weedless. I honestly haven't thrown this bait that much, so hopefully it will work and it will give those fish another unique look to maybe trigger some extra bites. This is a really beefy hook, so I need to pair it with a heavier rod than I normally do with my regular hair jig. This is a 7'6" heavy action Quantum Smoke S3 rod. I'm just pairing that with some 15-pound Seaguar in VizX line and then a 7-to-1 gear ratio Cast King reel. This is like a $69 reel I got off Amazon. It's working pretty well. I still like the Black Maxes a little bit better, but for now, it's still doing the job. And both these baits are kind of targeting those fish that are maybe set up just in the top of the brush, in the top of the timber, but still kind of close to the timber. I want to get these baits in contact with the cover I'm fishing, especially if those brush piles and those timber fish are a little bit deeper. So that's kind of the plan there. Now, if those fish are a little bit more suspended, especially during the first hour of the morning, I have a few other baits to target those fish that might be, 10 feet off the cover or maybe even suspended 10 feet from the surface first couple hours of the morning. The first bait I have tied on is tried and true Megabass Vision 110 +2. This thing dives, 13 feet usually with the setup I have here. I'm just throwing it in this kind of natural translucent shad color, and this Vision 110 +2 hopefully can get close enough to those brush piles that will draw some fish in that clear water to pull up out of them or the standing timber, but maybe not get hung up in the timber. And also if there's some schooling fish, I might be able to go a little bit underneath them and pick up some of those bigger 3 and 4 pounders if the fish are schooling. I'm pairing that with a Veritas 7-foot medium moderate bait casting rod. It's like 129 bucks, pretty solid rod. The cork's getting a little bit nasty after fishing for it for a while, so I'm not sure how I feel about this white cork, but at least the rod's action is pretty good. And I just have a 10-pound Seaguar in VizX fluorocarbon on here. With the 10-pound test and that 7-foot rod, I can get this bait down pretty deep, make a pretty long cast. Just have an Abu Garcia Black Max reel for the reel again. And I'm hoping that this will give me a little bit of advantage again over the other anglers, because I don't know if that many guys are even throwing, deep diving jerkbait in the summertime, that Vision 110 +2. Again, the whole goal with this trip is to give these fish a different look in baits that they're just not used to seeing, because if I'm going to catch 15 pounds, I need to trick these fish. Honestly, it's going to be a tough task on beaver, because if you look at all the local tournaments, even like the individual series tournaments with the best locals in the lake, there's only 1 or 2 bags of fish every tournament that are caught over 15 pounds. Of the 120 boats in most of these tournaments, there might be 2 bags of fish over 15 pounds. So I have my work cut out for me. Honestly, if I catch 12 pounds, I'll probably still be ecstatic, because that would put me in the top 10 in any of these local tournaments. But the whole series is catch 15, so I gotta catch 15 pounds. I think I can do it, but you know, it might not be the easiest thing with no practice, not knowing where all the brush piles are, everything like that. But it still should be a fun challenge to watch either way. Another bait I have that will target some of those suspended fish, but maybe fish that are a little bit higher up in the water column, is a Wakebait. This is the Megabass iJack Wakebait. I caught some really good fish on it last year on Table Rock out of some shallow timber. And so I'm gonna try it again. You know, I wasn't catching anything giant, just some 2.5 pound spotted bass. But if I can fill out my limit with, you know, 2.5 pound spotted bass, 2.25 pound spotted bass, then pick up some big largemouth out of some deep brush piles, some deep schools, I could potentially get to that 15 pound mark. This iJack is a pretty beefy bait, and I throw it on braided line. I actually throw it on 50 pound Stren braided line that I've had for years. I don't even know if they make it was called Sonic braid. So I just had a big spool of it and it still works. I'm putting that on a Abu Garcia Max X reel, or Max Z. It's a 7-to-1 gear ratio, $59 reel. So you guys can see I like my cheap fishing reels. They just work great for me. And I'm throwing this on a 7-foot medium action, actually a medium light action, Quantum Tour Special Edition rod. I know they don't make this rod anymore, discontinued, but it has a nice soft taper to it, which helps keep those fish pinned, even though I'm throwing braided line with that wake bait. So between the wake bait and the jerk bait, I'm thinking that I should be able to give those fish a little bit of a different look again that might be suspended up in the water column. Now, obviously, all of these baits I've shown so far are kind of power fishing baits. Baits that are targeting those bigger than average fish that are gonna be aggressive, getting down the strike zone, trying to trigger those reaction strikes. And that's probably what I'm gonna need to do if I wanna catch 15 pounds. However, I do know there are times when you need to go a little bit more finesse to put some fish in the boat. So I do have a couple spinning rods out. Don't normally see that from me, but I got a couple of them out. And the first one I got here is a drop shot. Now, I don't have the traditional, you know, super finessey drop shot on here. I went a little bit beefier, again, trying to get a little bit bigger bite and give these fish a different look. What I have here is a 5-inch Damiki Stinger. This is basically just a little, almost like a cross between a Senko and a finesse worm. And Brian Thrift throws this thing all the time. And I've caught some really good fish on it. And it's just a little bit thicker, a little bit beefier than your average drop shot worm. Normally I'll throw like a robo worm, 6-inch robo worm, and it's very skinny and thin. And I'm hoping that this little bit beefier worm is going to maybe trigger a few bigger bites, but still be finessey enough to get those inactive fish to bite. I just put that on like a maybe 14 to 16 inch leader with a 5/8 ounce drop shot weight. And I'm pairing that on a 7'3" medium heavy action Fitzgerald Fishing spinning rod. This is a spinning rod I just tried out. I'm trying to go all Brian Thrift on you with the Fitzgerald rod, the Damiki Stinger. I'm hoping that maybe I can, you know, channel my inner Brian Thrift. He had like the record on FLW Tour for like, I don't know, 78 tournament days in a row with a limit or something. So need to channel some inner Brian Thrift magic out there, hopefully to put these fish in the boat on beaver. He also does pretty well on beaver, won a tournament out there, so maybe it'll help. Just pairing that with a Abu Garcia Max Pro reel. $39 I think I bought it for. Again, I'm not sponsored by these cheap reel companies or Abu Garcia. I just buy them because they're really cheap and they work, they're great. I just have 20 pound, I think this was Sunline braided line. I don't even know. It's 20 pound Sunline braided line. I don't know the exact brand or the exact model of it. And I just have a 10 pound Seagar Invisex fluorocarbon leader. And that's basically how I'm fishing this drop shot. Not a big drop shot guy, honestly. I catch fish on drop shots. I catch a lot of small fish on drop shots. Not usually my cup of tea, but hey, if I'm really struggling, I will make it happen. The other spinning rod I got tied on here has a little bit of a beefier bait on it. Nothing crazy, but just a little bit bigger, but it's still, in my mind, a little bit finessey. This is the 7-inch M-Pack Shad by M-Pack Lures. This is a bait that I found at the Bassmaster Classic when I was there earlier this year. And basically it's this big jointed fluke. And what I've done is just put it on a 5/0 Gamakatsu EWG hook. And what I did is actually took a spinning rod and used kind of an interesting little setup here. I got a swivel. It's actually a little barrel swivel. I've tied some braided line to one end of the swivel, and I put a leader of 8 pound Seagar Invisex fluorocarbon, and that leader is, I don't know, maybe 3.5 feet long. And what I'm trying to do with that swivel and swimbait combination is kind of fish it like a deep floating worm, where you have the swivel dragging that swimbait down just a little bit. And I want to work this swimbait down in that 15 to 25 foot range. And this little fluke is hopefully going to have some good action as I'm just twitching it around down there slowly. And I've never tried this rig before. I literally just came up with this as I was prepping for this video. And I'm hoping that it could be, again, a little secret weapon. It's just something different. It's a big enough profile bait that I feel like I could get some big bites on it, some 3 and 4 pound bites. And it's different enough that maybe that many guys are trying it. I'm pairing that with a long rod just because I need to be able to cast this thing with that long leader. You can't reel that swivel through the guides. So I'm putting that on a 7'4" medium action Quantum Smoke S3 rod, spinning rod, with a size 30 Quantum Smoke spinning reel, and then I just put 20 pound that Sunline braided line that I had on the other spinning reel, and then again I had that 8 pound Seagar VizX leader there. So that's kind of the setup, and I'm hoping that this could be, again, one of my secret weapons to put some fish in the boat. So you can kind of see I have a lot of rods out, and that's one of the reasons I go with the cheap reels, because that way I can buy more fishing rods and spend less on my fishing reels. It actually works out really well. As you can see, most of my equipment is not super expensive, but the reason I do that is because I want to have the ability to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 rods in the deck of the boat. It really helps out to prepare myself in a variety of ways. And I have more rods in the rod locker too, just in case I need to pull out something else kind of random. My one thing I do want to kind of commit to in this Catch 15 challenge, though, is fishing offshore the entire day. I've tried in recent fishing trips before I started the series to mix in the offshore and the shallow both in the same day, and I just don't think that without any practice and only 8 hours of fish, I'm going to be able to consistently catch 15 pounds if I'm switching between shallow and deep. So I'm just going to spend the entire day fishing offshore with these baits, spend some time graphing, and hopefully that'll be enough to put 5 bass for 15 pounds in the boat. That's it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed me running through all my tackle, and hopefully you maybe learned something or at least found it interesting what my strategy will be. And you'll see the next Catch 15 video coming up very shortly, later this week on Beaver Lake, and you'll be able to see what my strategy was. Watch me on the lake, throwing all these baits, maybe catching fish, hopefully catching fish. And you'll see all the areas, sonar recordings, everything like that of where I'm fishing. So definitely check out that video and subscribe to the Fish Moment YouTube channel if you don't want to miss any more videos just like this. Oh, by the way, also, this is a new kind of idea I had for a video. So if you're still here, and only like 30% of my viewers stay this long into a video, so if you actually are still here, let me know in the comments if you like this video idea. Is it good with the baits, the prep, all that stuff? Just let me know. Be great to kind of hear from you guys what you think. But other than that, thanks again for checking out the video, and we'll see you on the next one.